gentlemen, good morning. Let me try that one more time. Good morning. What a beautiful day, right? Okay, am I the only one who thinks it's a beautiful day? It's a beautiful day to be doing some beautiful things today. Thank you all so much for coming here this morning. I trust that you will not leave here the same. Before we begin, let's just set a few house rules. Can we please have all our phones on silent, just so that they do not interrupt our proceedings here? Let's keep the walkway free for camera crew and anybody who's walking up here on stage. Once again, thank you for coming, because today NCBA is going to be setting some very bold commitments for the future and asking you and all of us to hold them to account. So, welcome today as NCBA makes its very bold commitments towards sustainability, that, by the way, is not anything new for NCBA. They have been on the sustainability journey, applying the principles throughout their business practices, but today you're going to hear some deliberate commitments that directly affect the issues that directly address the issues that affect us here in Kenya and around the world. The climate crisis that we all know is so real and we are experiencing at this time. You'll be hearing about a deliberate structures that are being put in place here. And once we unveil that identity, it is one that you will see and commitment towards sustainability. And that is what we'll be doing here today. So who are you going to hear from today? You will hear from staff at NCBA. You'll hear from the leadership here. You will hear from stakeholders in various sectors such as energy, partners who are working with NCBA, clients as well, government representatives, and sustainability champions. There's going to be a very important announcement that will be made by the Group MD about that very deep commitment to sustainability, holding them to account. And that is why this is a joint approach. This is a common goal. And so today, NCBA seeks to change the story. And that's why we're inviting you to tweet about it. If you want to do that, please share all of the gems and the insights that will be presented here this morning. Remember to use the hashtag NCBA Change the Story. That's what we're talking about here today. I would like to thank each and every one of you for coming, but I would also like to pay a special mention and thanks to the NCBA Group Chair, James Ndegwa, who's here with us. Thank you very much for making time. And the leadership and staff of the entire NCBA team that is led by the Group Managing Director, John Gashora. Asante Sana for being here. And also thank you very much to our chief guest today, Honorable Agostino Neto, who is a technical advisor on strategy and policy to the Cabinet Secretary in the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Forestry. We thank you for your time. Thank you for coming here today. Like we said, this is a collaborative effort, and this is the journey towards changing the story towards the year 2030, when we set some ambitious goals for us. Today, we change that story. And so, as we begin, I'd like you to hear from the NCBA Sustainability Champions on just what this journey means and what are some of the key commitments that they're willing to make here today.
Sustainability is being able to do business today using the resources that we have and making sure we don't compromise those resources for the business that we'll be doing in the future.
For me, sustainability can only be seen through the lens of a parent. I am the proud mama of two wonderful daughters. And when I think about their future and I think about what we're leaving behind for them, it feels incredibly jarring and scary. But I think if we can do a little something today to make their future a little brighter, then we'll have done our part.
We all have a responsibility to leave the world a better place, especially for our children. The effects of things such as climate change are actually very real. And so when we realize how this is important in terms of our businesses and even our own personal requirements and initiatives and commitments, we must do better.
Sustainability to me means meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs.
Sustainability is knowing that the actions that we have today will showcase the outcomes in future. We are responsible for the resources that we have available, environmental conservation and social equity.
It's been 9 months of incredible commitment from across the board, starting with defining the strategy, mobilizing a lot of committed employees. Over 30 sustainability champions and ExCom stakeholders have come together to really define what does sustainability mean, not just for the world, but for NCBA.
It's been a long journey trying to put this together and trying to generate ideas that will see us go into the future as a sustainable business. So seeing it coming together, being able to use energy efficiently, being able to use single-use plastic, being able to generate resources that can see us do sustainable business in the future is a great joy to me.
We've been able to guide the team on, what's required, what is the world thinking, what's the world agenda, how do we plug into this agenda, and how does NCBA play a better role in terms of leaving our communities much better than we found them.
We are essentially asking the world to measure and hold us accountable. And I think it's bold when we have to go out and say, this is what we plan to do. This will be our contribution to how we run our business sustainably to ensure that our future generations are taken care of.
The ambition is there to intervene in a meaningful way in the environment, to change the way we do business, change the way we approach our clients and the environment as a whole.
I'm excited just to showcase the tangible efforts of our positive impact in the communities we operate, as well as leaving a legacy.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's give a warm round of applause to the sustainability champions at NCBA. And that's what it means for them. But now, some very bold commitments. Sustainability, setting strategy, and reporting on it is what I like to think a very vulnerable moment for organizations, because it's making commitments and it's making them public before God and before man, if you like, and asking people to make sure that this is what we said we will do, and this is how far we have gone with doing it. And so that is what they have said they plan to do. But what are some of those very key, deliberate steps, structures, commitments that are being made by NCBA here today? And for that, I'd like us to put our hands together for the Group Managing Director of NCBA, and that is Mr. John Gashora, as he comes up to make those commitments. Karibu.
Thank you, Yvonne. Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Let me take the opportunity to welcome you to NCBA. Great to have you here and to join us as we unveil our sustainability commitments for the next several years. Let me just say, as Yvonne said, let me start by saying that we are in code red when it comes to climate change. And I say code red, knowing that each one of us has a story. Obviously, here we are flashing what the newspapers are saying, but I was reflecting on my own story. And when I go to the village where I come from, and I go to the little stream where I used to drink water from, and just look at that stream today, it's really not a stream anymore. It's a patch of mud, essentially. And I think all of us has a story. You reflect back, before we had piped water, people still drank water. Where did it come from? Can you really in Nairobi today say you can drink water without piped water? That's a story. And so today, we're talking about future generations. If we are drinking tapped water or piped water today, thinking about where they're going to drink their water from. And we as NCBA coming together with you to publicly make some commitments about what we're going to do to ensure that those future generations have access to water by doing things sustainably. As Yvonne said, we have done many things as NCBA already. We talk about our current endowments in the ESG space. And one we like to highlight is our work on gender inclusion, where 51% of our staff today are female. And when I speak to the staff, I say 51% of our staff are female, but I do realize there is a pyramid in those numbers. Doesn't mean it's 51% at every level. And the work that we have to do is towards making sure that if we say it's 51%, is at every level. The environment, so far we have worked with partners to plant over 7 million trees, and we'll be making further commitments today. Financial inclusion, through our work with partners to bring to life Mshwari, Fuliza, and other products, we have been at the forefront of expanding financial inclusion in this country to reach the number that we have today of 86%. And then community engagement, we have been supporting youth sports, youth education, and you see some of the examples of the outcomes of the work that we have done, with just this year having 12 kids from Kenya qualify through an NCBA-sponsored golf tour to participate in the World Championships for golf. I think that's something that we are very proud about. And for those who love golf, and I see a few people in the room, for the very first time, we have a Kenyan ranked in the top 100 in the world. Again, thanks to NCBA sponsorship. So again, but that is not enough. But that is not enough. And this year, like we do every year, we come up with thematic areas of our strategy that we're going to focus on. The board sets these as priorities for the year, where they must see tangible change in the way we do business. And this year, one of the areas identified, as you can see at the bottom of the thematic areas, is sustainability. That we must define, we must have a well-defined sustainability agenda and begin to retool our business towards making it that sustainable. So today, that's why I'm very glad that you joined us as we unveil our sustainability strategy. And through this strategy, we aim to catalyze action towards a greener and more sustainable future for the communities we serve, for all our stakeholders, and certainly for us as a business NCBA. And to do so, we have come up with 5 pillars that we'll be looking at strategy through. These 5 pillars are: 1, a pillar to minimize our direct impact of climate and amplify our tree planting program. A pillar to ignite our customers' transition to a low carbon operating model. A pillar to mitigate the impact of climate-related risks to our long-term performance. On the social side, having talked about the things we have done, a pillar to enhance the impact of our community engagement model, and certainly on governance, a pillar to optimize our corporate governance. We're making 15 very bold commitments, 3 under each of these pillars, which is what we are unveiling today. So if I may start with the very first pillar, to minimize our direct impact on climate and amplify our tree planting program. We're making these 3 commitments. 1, that by 2030, NCBA shall be directly responsible for the planting of 10 million trees across the region. 10 million trees across the region. That by 2030, we will fully eliminate single-use plastics and also recycle 100% of our waste by 2030. We will also green our supply chain and transform all our corporate gifting to be sustainable. So the gifts that you get from NCB as our customers, please, when you get one that's not speaking to sustainability, return it. and remind us about this commitment. More importantly, on the second pillar, which is to ignite our customers' transition to a low-carbon operating model, we're making the commitment that we will mobilize over 30 billion shillings of green and sustainable financing to our customers to accelerate the transition. So 30 billion commitment that we're making today. That we will, working again with partners, invest in deploying electric vehicle charging stations across the region. This being a very important commitment, because I think people want to buy electric vehicles, but one of the things that's been missing is charging stations. Today we shall demonstrate this commitment by unveiling 2 for our staff and for our customers that we have installed over the past 1 month. And further, we shall make sure that the knowledge about climate change, the knowledge about the ethos of ESG are transmitted to the public and to our customers by developing a Change the Story knowledge platform to inspire and capacitate the public towards this change. On the pillar, to mitigate the impact of climate-related risks to our long-term performance, again, we have made 3 commitments. 1 is we are undertaking a complete group-wide carbon audit this year. And once the numbers are determined, we're making the commitment by 2030, we'll have greater than 50% reduction from that number. Greater than 50% reduction for the number of emissions that we are responsible for as NCBA. We will align starting to the 2015 Paris Agreement and reduce our financed emissions by 2030, working with our customers, and we shall do so by embedding thorough assessment of climate-related risks in our lending, investment, and financing activities. When it comes to our community engagement model, we shall enhance the impact of our work by doing a number of things, but we make these commitments publicly. That first of all, charity begins at home. We shall invest to train and ignite our over 3,000 staff to make a difference through the I Change the Story program. And please do hold us accountable. Do hold my staff accountable. We will deploy 100 million annually to support communities in which we operate. That's another commitment, regardless of the budget. That means whether we are budgeting to have a loss that year or not, 100 million shall be committed towards supporting communities in which we operate. And we will champion inclusive communities through regional sport development. Number 5, a pillar to optimize our corporate governance. And under this pillar, again, we're making very publicly these commitments. 1, that we will steer at least 30% of our general services procurement spend to women and youth. We will promote diversity, equity, and inclusion at all levels of operations. And that speaks to the 51% number that I talked about. That this is going to be a challenge at every level, not just at the bottom of the pyramid. We will provide targeted mentorships and skills for women and youth to ensure that they can fully participate in our and others' procurement processes. Ladies and gentlemen, those are the commitments that we want to make publicly. There are many commitments that we are making internally for our staff as well, and that speak to individual staff, They speak to what we call houses within the organization. We are organized in houses. There are commitments within the houses and commitments within departments. And all those will add up to this sustainability agenda. This is not being done. It's not being anchored fully on its own, because in a couple of weeks, we shall be hosting the Africa Climate Week. And His Excellency has challenged all of us to do something. And I think that's a challenge that not just our president here in Kenya has given us, but the presidents in all the countries we operate, whether that be Tanzania, Rwanda, Uganda, the presidents have come up with bold commitments towards sustainability. And so our NCBA agenda, all strategies should be seen in that light, adding up to the bigger picture. To hold ourselves accountable to not just these commitments that we made today, we are also today signing to the UN Global Compact. And therefore, we will be signing to the 10 principles that the UN Global Compact aims to achieve across human rights, across labor, across environment, and certainly speaking to anti-corruption. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to join us on this journey. These commitments are only doable if all of us, as the community that gives us permission to operate, also join us in this journey. So we're asking you also today to make self-commitments. And these commitments will be that you in your individual capacity, in places of work, in your homes, and in societies where you belong, that you do more to be energy efficient. So you will need to commit on being more energy efficient. The second commitment we are asking of you, like we are giving of NCBA, is that you do everything to go plastic free. That you help in ditching single-use water bottles and avoid products made from or packaged in plastic. Now, I say this knowing that there may be customers of ours whose job is exactly this. We want to work with you. We want to work with you to make sure that even as we ditch the use of plastics, we help you in the transition journey. It will cost money, and we're here to work with you. Number 3 commitment is that you shall be a sustainability champion. You're invited here today because we're asking you to commit to be a sustainability champion, because we know that you can and because you care. Number 4, is very close to my heart, is that you shall be an avid tree planter and grower. I know not all of us have access to places where you can plant trees, given where we live. Maybe you live in apartments, you can plant trees. But I believe all of us know somebody who has a place. And government does have places where we can plant trees. Commit to plant trees. I think you've all heard me say before that it takes, apparently science have shown you need 7 trees to survive. The amount of oxygen we consume in a lifetime is what is provided by having at least 7 trees. So when you leave here, go count the trees that are yours. And if you cannot find 7 that nobody else is claiming, please plant yours. Very important. And lastly, and this is commitment we are making as NCBA because we're going to do it, that you'll also be thoughtful about printing, and you shall opt to store and set documents digitally. And therefore, to our customers, we'll be speaking with you about how we transition. I know we are the ones guilty of asking you to sign a lot of documents, isn't it? So one of the things we want to announce today is we're going to be working with our customers to see how we can adopt e-signatures as a mode of commitment, as a mode of commitments between ourselves. So ladies and gentlemen, those are the commitments we are making, and those are also the commitments we are asking of you to make today. So I'm really hopeful that working together in 40 years' time, our kids will be sitting here with the type of place that we have today, talking about making their own other 40-year commitment. And before I sit down, I'll leave you with one fact that I learned recently, and I think I was with my friend here, Tamara, when we were told this, that all of us somewhere have admired, either in picture, in form, in truth, have admired the snow that you see on the cap of Mount Kilimanjaro, isn't it? We love it, isn't it? Science shows that if we don't do something today, in 40 years, there will not be any snow on top of Mount Kilimanjaro. So you can see why it's called red. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me so that in 40 years, our kids can see snow on Mount Kilimanjaro. Thank you.
To give a warm round of applause once again. Congratulations to NCBA for joining the UN Global Compact Network. If you or your organization have tried to sign up, it is not an easy process. You are taken through the steps and through the motions. And it's not like you are taken through the steps and the motions to become a member of a club and you get an award. You are actually signing up for then people to tell you, hey, how are you doing with this goal and this goal and this goal? So you're actually signing up for an accountability process, but it is a major step. And congratulations to NCBA once again for that. And I think just like we are reminding you all, the hashtag online is NCBA Change the Story, and it is a call to commitment, not just for NCBA, but for all of us in our personal capacities. And we'll be telling you about everything that is here. There is ways in which NCBA has incorporated sustainability from the screens to the gifting. We will be telling you about that, and we'll also be showcasing a lot about some of those commitments that have been made with those electric vehicle charging stations. It is super accessible to customers. You will all get a chance to see that and be able to experience it and see just how that works. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite next up to speak to us the group chairperson here of NCBA Group, and that is Mr. James Ndegwa. Let's give him a warm round of applause.
Good morning. The MC was kind enough to welcome me to NCBA, but of course it's for me to welcome you to NCBA. It's my duty, and I'm so glad to see our guest of honor, to see our guests, our customers, indeed our management and staff. And thank you very much, all of you, for coming today. You know, when we created NCBA, we looked at various logos and color themes and so on. And I must admit, I thought this was black. But when I was shown the signage, it was explained to me it was actually brown. And obviously I needed a different prescription in my glasses. But today, sitting there, I realized actually brown is a more eco-friendly color. And indeed, it's quite appropriate that we have that brown. It gels better with the green. And so maybe this was foresight, which I had not fully understood at the time. But generally, NCBA is about inspiring. It's about inspiring greatness. And today we want to inspire greatness in sustainability. Just because John mentioned kids, you know, as I sat there, I just recall that just a few weeks ago, I was sitting with one of my kids, and they had found a program on National Geographic, and it was done by David Attenborough. He was looking at the effect of climate change from the North Pole coming down until the South Pole, and really, it's just stunning what has happened in a very, very short time. And I then, you know, pondered why are there deniers? How can they deny a reality? You know, John talked about Mount Kilimanjaro, that in 40 years there will be no snow. Well, I think it's seriously reduced anyway. as a kid, I lived on Kilimanjaro Avenue. That was back in the 70s. And at that time, a lot of these office buildings, there were no office buildings. We could actually see Mount Kilimanjaro across. And it had snow we could see from here. So it's gone down very, very seriously. But then I thought, maybe these deniers, they're not denying the change. What they're denying is responsibility. They're denying who is responsible, and they're certainly not taking responsibility for doing something about it. But NCBA is a patriotic, responsible corporate citizen, and we embrace sustainability as among those responsibilities. I think as a board, our role is to look at matters of governance and policy and strategy. And I can assure you that as a board, we endorse the commitments John has unveiled. And our duty now is to ensure compliance, adherence to those. We shall certainly facilitate and ensure that management can do the same. And therefore, I think, collectively, each of us must do our part. I think in our country, we recognize that there are many who live literally day to day. And those single-use plastics and the various other elements which are destructive to the environment are not really, choices are not necessarily choices. They are having to deal with them as a matter of practicality. But for those of us who have, the privileged position to maybe look beyond today to tomorrow and beyond that, we then must carry the burden for others. We must support them in making the transitions necessary so that we all live in a sustainable world. Indeed, damage is severe, and I think for now the issue is to mitigate, to at least slow the deterioration, so that indeed 40 years from now, our kids have a world in which they can live and make indeed commitments to perhaps reverse the mistakes that our generation have made. So I think that's really all I wanted to say. I appreciate all of you for coming today. I endorse what I've heard, and I look forward to hearing from our guest of honor. So indeed, it's my privilege to invite our guest of honor, Neto Agostino. I imagine, I don't know, I've met him for the first time today. Of course, I've seen him as a member of parliament, that perhaps his parents received him into the world somewhere in the 70s, because for those of us who are around that time, we remember when Mzee Jomo Kenyatta tried to handle the negotiations for peace in Angola, and we had the various leaders here, and indeed Agostino Neto was among those. This is a different generation, a very inspiring young man who's been a member of parliament, but now is indeed a senior advisor to the CS for Environment. And thank you very much for coming today, Mheshimiwa.
To the group chairman, Bwana James Ndegwa, thank you for revealing my age. The group managing director, Bwana John Gashara, the executive director, UN Global Compact, Ms. Judy Gino, I hope I get that correct. The Basigo Chief Revenue Officer, Moses Nderitu, Engineer Joseph Siror, MD and CEO, NCBA Director of Strategy and Chief of Staff, Louisa Wandabwa, Dr. Luca Belpietro, founder of Marseille Wilderness Conservation Trust, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I am honored to be here to represent the Cabinet Secretary, Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Forestry, the Honorable Soipan Tuya, CBS, who is not been able to make it, not because she didn't want, it's because our office right now is a bedlam. Our office is a mess with many things happening with the African Climate Summit. But she did request that me and my colleague Eunice sitting there, the senior staff at our office, do come and represent her at this particular event because of the level of importance. I hope you accept our apologies and accept that I can represent her in this particular event. Is that okay? I will take back her greetings, and one of the things I will tell her is that when I met the leadership of the NCBA, I was quite inspired because they are both strong to serve and they walk in the light. So I will tell her that this is a group of people to engage with. For those of you who know what I've said, it is. Thank you very much. And yeah, at least that date club catches a joke. I think overall, I have a speech that is written by the Cabinet Secretary, and I will read it. But I really think that one of the things that I'd like to emphasize as a person in charge of both policy and strategy is that the work we do at the ministry is very easy. Our work is to coordinate all the efforts of people engaging in environment activities. So our role is that easy. Just coordinate. Environment, unlike medicine, in medicine, you can't go injecting people. You have to have, but environment, everyone is planting a tree, everyone is recycling, so you can only do the work of coordinating. So, first of all, thank you very much for inviting the Cabinet Secretary to the launch of your sustainability strategy. This launch makes part continuum of the climate change-related activities and events that curtain raise for the Africa Climate Summit that Kenya and the African Union co-host between the 4th and the 6th of September 2023 at the Kenyatta International Convention Center in Nairobi. And I'm happy that the MD has properly highlighted, actually even shown the brand and the logo. Since NCBA and partners look like you're already climate change compliant with regard to climate action interventions, I'm sure you already are aware of the theme of the Africa Climate Summit, which I will just here state is driving green growth and climate finance solutions for Africa and the world. Thank you very much, NCBA, for your generous contribution towards the summit. I think I saw the fundraising, the gentleman in charge of fundraising, Debisi. I saw him here. Yes, Debisi, I am just confirming that NCBA has redeemed their pledge. And thank you very much for being generous. Yeah, thank you very much. So at least there's a witness, in my other life, the profession where we belong to, you need witnesses. At least NCBA has delivered on their promise, and thank you very much. As a planning team, we're still running low on funds, and we're happy to have any partners chipping in, and the BC and team are here. We'll be happy to have any more support. The summit that Kenya and the African Union co-host in Nairobi in another 2 weeks should interest any financial institution and investor for that matter, and I'll explain why. It's the first time in climate change history that heads of state and government are gathered to discuss, albeit covertly, the climate change development nexus. 2 weeks ago, I had the chance of representing the Cabinet Secretary at the Law Society of Kenya annual conference, and one of the persons was wondering, why are people talking so much about climate change? Why didn't you talk about development? And then I was like, oops. I hope you understand that in climate change, there is all conversations on climate change can only be development conversations, because the nexus is so close that you cannot, when you talk about climate change adaptation and climate change mitigation, those are all development issues, and you cannot separate the two. So African leaders and heads of government will also have a chance to discuss the debt distress from multilateral banks that leaves little wiggle room for development finance, which consequently make climate change adaptation and mitigation elusive for Africa. To the extent that African countries are debt-ridden, we do not have enough money that can then help us engage in climate change mitigation adaptation interventions. The summit that we host is going to be a trade and investment summit, where Africa will be showcasing its resources to the world, the renewable energy resources, the carbon sink potential, the arable land and critical minerals, which we will propose should be sustainably extracted, your word sustainability, or exploited to lead the world to a green growth development trajectory, as we help the world decarbonize with a view to taming a global warming and combating climate change. We will be showcasing Africa as a solution provider to climate change discourse, as opposed to Africa with begging balls that always we need. This time around, Africa is bringing its natural, renewable energy resource, our carbon sinks, and we're asking the world please bring in your capital so that at least we do development in a manner to combat climate change. We will be displaying our resources with a view to attracting capital and investment across the globe. Ladies and gentlemen, when Mr. James Gishora was speaking and he used the word code red, then I knew I was in the correct space and correct place, because the accelerating threat of climate change raises urgency of global commitment to climate transition, including the important role of financial markets in aligning investment and financing net zero objectives. That is why, as a ministry, we are very proud to be associated with the sustainability strategy. I am informed that NCBA is supporting climate action engagements through the establishment of a 2 billion shillings fund to provide asset finance for green technologies, including electric vehicles, as well as providing infrastructure, including charging stations in your branch network. And you've promised that you'll show us some of this today. Actions such as this, in our view as a ministry, is in the right direction, given that we need concerted efforts to combat climate change. Like I told you again, our role as the ministry is just to coordinate, shepherd everyone else, guide you towards what we think is useful. The Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Forestry welcomes the NCBA's 2 billion Climate Action Fund that will provide financing exclusively for customers wishing to adopt green technology. We call upon other banks and banking-related financial institutions to emulate the NCBA's example. The ministry would also like to encourage the NCBA to be part of the deal rooms and conclude investment deals that will take place during the Africa Climate Summit and beyond. And that's the reason why DBC is here. We have a platform where there's going to be investors brought on board, and there are going to be deal rooms for negotiations. And that's a space that we're inviting you as a ministry to come and negotiate and plan how to help us achieve sustainability by moving Africa forward. There's going to be discussions on green technologies such as solar, hydro, geothermal, and renewable energy. And that space, again, like it's where you want to go. That's where you would like to put in your money. We'd like to encourage you to take the interest in Kenya's climate smart agriculture as well, that strategy, which emerges as a strategic shield designed to adapt to climatic oscillations while nurturing the resilience of agricultural systems and minimizing greenhouse gas emissions. The sustainability strategy commitments that you have shared this morning, and I was looking at thematic areas, gender, environment, financial inclusion, community engagement, and then the particular goals, that you show, minimizing your direct footprints of climate mitigation by tree planting, your carbon models, enhancing impacts of global climate change, and optimizing governance, amongst others. These align with the government's vision of fostering economic, environmental, and social impacts that shape the future, befitting both the present and future generations. So I think we are very well aligned in many fronts. The Ministry of Environment, Climate Change and Forestry, in our strategic plan for 2023-2027, prioritizes landscape and ecosystem restoration. And you remember the President in December last year launched the 50 billion trees campaign by 2032. We welcome your commitment to plant 10 million trees, and I saw that, and I'm happy that you broke it down. I didn't know that science. I thought you're just a mathematician, that every person needs 7 trees to survive. So if you've not planted your 7 trees, like the MD requested, please do plant your 7 trees. But again, my minister always says, at least plant your birthday. If you're in the 50s like us, or in the 60s like us, you plant 60, you plant 70, and and then at least you give up. So we really welcome your 10 million trees plan, and which you commit you're going to do through strategic partnerships. The government's Landscape and Ecosystem Restoration Program has one of its objectives the creation of green jobs for youth and women through propagation of tree nurseries. And of course, like you've shown very clearly, that your interventions are targeted towards youth and towards women. And that's why I'm saying we are very well aligned in very many fronts. We welcome NCBA and other partners to buy seedlings from youth and women groups across the country to help us achieve the dual objective of restoration as well as job creation. We, as a ministry, have set up a target to plant 500 million trees at the onset of the short rains this September, by the time it is Christmas 2023. So 500 million trees target. If you're going to do 15 billion trees in 10 years, it simply means you have to plant 4 million trees a day. That's how serious it is. So we've hoped that between now and the time it is Christmas, we'll have tried to plant 500 million trees. And as a ministry, we can't do it on our own. That's the reason why 10 million trees from NCBA, 10 million trees from another partner. And and I'm happy that you actually put it correctly, that those of you who have no places to plant trees, we have youth and women in community forest associations. We have organizations that are out there. There's landscapes to adopt that you can actually adopt as a bank, as a corporate, to really plant the trees. Ladies and gentlemen, the National Assembly yesterday, 2 days ago, passed the Climate Change Amendment Bill. We await the Senate's concurrence with the bill, which, if they do, will set the stage for a regulatory framework for the development of carbon markets and carbon trading. You are well aware that the government welcomes public-private partnerships, such as the one that you've fronted by NCBA Group, and like I've highlighted, we are working to develop and implement policies and strategies to tap into the global carbon market opportunities, green and climate financing mechanisms, green bonds, and debt for climate swaps, among others. We believe in forging alliances with various institutions to access global climate funds and attract investments that bolster the efficacy of African climate action projects. So apart from the Climate Change Act that I have spoken to, as a ministry, we're also revising the National Climate Change Action Plan. We're also revising our LTS, which will be launched at the Africa Climate Summit between the 4th and the 6th of September. The action plan accentuates the essence of sustainability while prioritizing adaptive strategies to amplify climate resilience, especially among the vulnerable segments of our society, which again, as NCBA has shown, is part of the people you're actually working with. It is therefore possible to go on and on in drawing parallels. I mean, I wanted just to show that what the NCBA strategy has launched today and what the government thinks about, we are all aligned. And I'm able to show you that, by talking about your tree growing plan, your women and youth interventions, your priority in the green areas. But allow me to implore upon each and every one of us to transcend the role of being observers and become agents of change for sustainable development. For you at NCBA Group, advocating for policies that underpin sustainable development as well as incentivize green investments then becomes paramount. Since if we leverage on your influence across the industry, as a bank and as a group, we will be on our way to shaping a future that serves not only our collective interests, but also the broader aspirations of our society. Congratulations once more on this launch. We look forward to a robust partnership. Let us change the story. Let us inspire greatness in sustainability. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Agostino Neto. Well, he was born in the 70s. Perhaps for me it was a little after that. But for those of you who didn't follow his career, because I was privileged to cover a lot of the work that he has done, couldn't have picked a better person to be an advisor on matters sustainability, environment. Agostino Neto is a well-known equality and human rights defender, very well known during his time in Parliament for pushing for legislation that ensured women's rights, particularly against domestic violence. He also chaired the Kenya Parliamentary Human Rights Association, so he comes a long way in that, and when he is now the one who is advising on that, very good to know, and has also provided strategic advice to help shape policy on environmental sustainability. So congratulations and thank you. We couldn't have a better person that's leading that. And also, please send our very best regards to Honorable Soipan Tuya, who is also breaking barriers in her own right as the first woman from the Maasai community to make it to Kenya's cabinet over 50 years after our independence. Let's give her a warm round of applause for that. And of course for the President for noting that and making that appointment. So please pass our highest regards to her and the entire team at the ministry. We thank you for that. And just to reiterate what you have said, Agostino Neto and John Gashora as well, that this is a call to private commitments as well. So we're asking you right outside, not now, when you leave, think about it. Think what your personal commitment will be towards sustainability. There is a board there, and we invite you to sign on to that board, what your commitment is. And because it is the spirit of openness, we ask you to leave your name and your organization I mean, NCBA is here giving some very bold commitments. The least you could do is do that as well. We'll keep that board, and when we meet you the next time, we'll be happy to ask you how far you are doing in planting your 7 trees. 7 for you. But surely you can plant another 7 for your neighbor and, love thy neighbor as thyself. So make sure you do that. But let me just, as we're setting up for our panel discussion that's coming up in a moment, it's about talking about sustainability, but it is walking the talk. So let me tell you a little bit about what's happening here, right? So you see these LED screens? They're using lighting that consumes less energy. The wooden furniture for this event, 80% of the structure is sourced from plants and trees, and in fact has been reused, all right? And wooden backdrops that are in nature sourced from trees and have been reused, like we've said, for several events. And the fabrication partner for this, and that's Wood Not Green, has managed to achieve 30% of women employment within their organization. So like we said, it's about not just NCBA, but partners and stakeholders and holding them accountable. And in this one, that sadly makes me feel very old, so you are not alone, Mheshimiwa. 90% of the event partner employees are under the age of 35, with a large majority coming from low-income areas. So let's give a warm round of applause. I thought it would be important just to let you know in which ways you can incorporate sustainability in everything that you do. And with sustainability, it would seem that for some of us, we may be phased out from the planet entirely as the years go beyond 35. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, remember you can continue to tweet. The hashtag is NCBA Change the Story. Now I would like to introduce you to our panelists. Let's have a discussion now on just what sustainability means and what the various stakeholders are doing in their space. Let's take a look at our panelists here this morning. I'd like to invite them up. First up, Ms. Judy Njino, who is the Executive Director and focal point of the Global Compact Network Kenya. Karibu sana, Judy. Also leading the sustainability and of course the staff here, Director of Strategy and Chief of Staff at the NCBA Group, we have Louisa Wandabwa. Moses Nderitu is a CEO and Chief Revenue Officer at Basigo. Basigo has been doing a lot of work in the EV space, and he'll be telling us about it. We'll be seeing those charging stations. We will take you there for you to experience this one-on-one. And of course, last but Conservation Trust. Ladies and gentlemen, I think, Louisa, to begin with you, let's talk about what sustainability means, but also what those ambitious goals are. And as you're looking at those goals, what will success look like?
Thank you, Yvonne, and thank you all for joining us today. I think in the earlier video, I referenced that it's been 9 months of what one can only say birthing an idea. And for me, what I'm excited about is that sustainability at NCBA is a recognition that in order for us to be successful in the future, it begins with having the right relationships today with our partners, with our customers, and also retrofitting our business internally today to be able to succeed in the future. So today, the commitments that we made are not plastic. We spent a lot of time ensuring that they're science-led, that they are guided by practical ideas, that they are inclusive,
and that they're actually going to demonstrate change and have real impact and outcomes for our business and for the communities that we serve. I'm excited that we're holding ourselves accountable. Signing up to the UN Global Compact is not a simple feat. I think Judy here with us will signal that there's a process that's followed. But for us, it's because we want to be held accountable. We want that the mission and the mandate that the board has given us around inspiring greatness, that we continue to live that through how we operate and how we run our business. So we're very excited that this is a very inclusive agenda that's rallying all of our commitments and all of our stakeholders together to deliver.
And the role of the financial sector in driving sustainability, I think falling in the nexus between private sector and public sector, how important is that, and what's NCBA's commitment towards that?
Absolutely. I mean, I think I saw a statistic that was a bit scary, that in order for Africa to be able to make this transition, we need $2.8 trillion, not shillings, $2.8 trillion. I will not attempt to multiply that with the currency as it stands today, but really we're only getting about 30 billion flowing in every year. What that tells you is that there's a huge gap that has to be met. And the actions that the government is taking in terms of what is the role of Africa in this conversation. We're not here with a begging bowl. We understand that we can act as a carbon sink. We understand that we can provide these very needed nature-based solutions to this problem. And as such, we can stand tall, right? And say that we are bringing something to the table. And as NCBA, our part is that initially that 30 billion commitment towards financing this transition, working with partners such as DFIs. I saw my friends from CEDA here. I think they've had to step out, and many others in the community to say, how do we mobilize that capital? How do we ensure that this bridge between the 2.8 trillion and the 30 billion is really achieved through private actors in the financial sector?
You know, financing is key, but also in our journey towards 2030, we've had a few setbacks, as with the COVID-19 pandemic, as well as a couple of other global shocks. Judy, how are we doing now, 7 years to go to the deadline we set for ourselves?
Yeah, thank you, Yvonne. And allow me to just say from the onset, a really big congratulations to NCBA for making this public commitment. At the UN Global Compact, we don't take it lightly because in the lead up to the 2030 agenda deadline, credibility and accountability has to be central to how the private sector comes to the table to provide solutions to the sustainable development agenda. And so, Yvonne, as you've rightly noted, that we have 7 years to go, very short time, and at the same time we are faced with these very many crises. We have, of course, the war that is continuing to rage on in Ukraine, but we are also faced with a triple planetary climate crisis of pollution, biodiversity loss, and of course the climate crisis itself. And so what we are seeing is that we are not actually making enough progress, and we are actually seeing for the first time that on some goals we are actually reversing back on progress. There's a report that has just been released that is indicating that quite a number of the SDGs that we had already started making progress on, we are actually reversing. And these are goals that are tied to poverty, climate, and hunger. And as of course, as we continue on, it's likely that we'll continue to be faced with many shocks. And so the threat is real that we will not achieve the SDGs by the year 2030. But all hope is not lost. There's so much more that we can do as a private sector, collaborating with government and other stakeholders in the country to ensure that in a lot of our goal setting, and it's very good to hear the commitments that NCBA has made, that we actually address the issue of ambition and accelerating action at scale. And there's an important piece here around collaboration, because private sector by itself will not be able to help us, move the needle on the goals. So we need to revise strategy to see to what extent can we also target efforts around the goals that need acceleration, and at the same time ensure that the goals that are left behind, many of them critical to us here in the continent, are also not forgotten. And so we look to also see how the sector, especially the financial services, can also help us bridge the financing gap, because the challenges are many, but the resources, as you've heard, are limited. And of course, we also have the 100 billion pledge that remains unfulfilled from the global community. But what we are saying, even as we head into the Africa Climate Summit, that Africa is not coming to the table with a begging bowl. We are coming there with solutions. We are coming there to say that we are already doing it. And I think we have very many examples of how private sector is already responding. But what we are saying is we need, action at a much higher scale, and we need to be able to drive ambition. So no longer just looking at incremental steps, but to what extent can we also stretch the levels of ambition within our companies?
Yeah, and that's important. Yes, please do give that a round of applause, because it is important. Don't let me curtail that. But we've understood what the bigger picture is in terms of financing, where we are. But what does it really look like, out on the ground? You are the one working out with the people, conserving the environment. Tell us your story and how that all of these things that we are saying here and pledging can tie into what you are really seeing on the ground.
Thank you, and thank you for having me. Perhaps a little bit of a background. So I studied economics. I did my thesis on wildlife's natural resource in Kenya, sustainable development and environment conservation. It was 3 decades ago. So I guess I was looking ahead and a little bit of a pioneer. So what we created in the Chulu Hills is something quite special, creating first an eco-lodge, and then we understood that it wasn't enough to address all the needs of the community. And the Maasai Wilderness Conservation Trust then based its services to community on payment for ecosystem services. First with tourism and then with carbon credits. And there is a lot of misunderstanding about carbon, so if I can spend 10 seconds very quickly, you can have sequestration. And so I always say it's like a boat. You have a boat that is sinking. You have water in the boat, and you have water coming in. So you need to do 2 things. You need to stop that water coming in, and then you need to get the water out. So if you plant a tree, you're sort of getting the water out, which we need to do. But let's not forget about stopping the water coming in, which is a reduction of emission for deforestation. I'm a pilot, love flying. Aviation is 2.5% of carbon emission. Deforestation is between 15 to 20%. So it's so fundamental that we protect our forests. And John, you're absolutely right. I'm Kenyan. Every Kenyan in this room can think about where they come from, where their father come from. Those streams are gone. Think about the Mao forest. We need to protect our forests. We need to plant and we need to protect. And so that's what Maasai Wilderness Conservation Trust does. In terms of electric vehicles, we have been helped by the government. So we have a partnership with Rivian, which was the first manufacturer of electric vehicles. And we are in a financial room here. I can tell you that our cars, Land Rovers, consume, let's say they cost slightly less than $2 a kilometer. A Rivian vehicles cost 15 cents. And that includes the photovoltaic system that we built there. So our cars are zero emissions. We created the first lodge in Kenya, in Africa, that is zero emissions. And I'm here today on behalf of Maasai Wilderness Conservation Trust. And Samson Parashina is a brilliant Maasai, who is the chairman of the board. It was celebrated by UN at Rio +20 with the Champion of the Earth. And my partner is Edward Norton, who is UN Ambassador for Biodiversity. Everybody gets excited because he's a brilliant actor. That is zero, doesn't count what it counts. That is a passionate conservationist, and we wouldn't be where we are without him.
Yeah, and just hearing what is actually happening there. And you've talked about, the electric vehicle space and just the amount of that we're able to offset, right? And that's some important work. So that's what's happening at Chulu Hills. But there's also something happening here in Nairobi. And Moses, we can speak to you about the work that you're doing at Basigo. So we've heard the electric vehicles at Chulu Hills. Tell us about what you are doing with the, offsetting the carbon footprint, particularly in the urban transport sector.
Thank you, Yvonne, and thank you for having me here. I think I would like to start by taking you guys back 1,258 days ago. And we got our first COVID lockdown. And what happened to you Nairobians? You were stuck at home. But in 3 days of no public transport, no trucks, no diesel emitters on the roads, what happened? Exactly what Chairman said. Depending on where you are in Nairobi, you could see both Mount Kenya and Mount Kilimanjaro. I happened to go and see somebody at Ole Sereni. It was one of the lockdown hotels, and you could see both. Something I have not seen since I was a young man or a young boy in the 70s. So what was missing? It was 40% of the emissions that happen, that actually come from the diesel matatus that ply our routes. And that is where Basico started. So what are we doing? What we are doing as Basico is actually trying to make it affordable. And I think you said it's very expensive to actually acquire an electric vehicle. But we're making it affordable for these matatu operators to be able to acquire electric buses. And one bus in Nairobi, because of all the other great things that are happening in Kenya, our 93% renewable grid, the fact that we charge our buses at night when we've got actually excess power. One bus in Nairobi mitigates around 50 tons of carbon per year. So there's nowhere else in the world better than to electrify vehicles than in Kenya for those factors I'm talking about. And what else, if I take you back to COVID, all of you who could afford went and bought a bicycle or running shoes. Try and today ride your bike or walk in our city. You will have soot on your face. You have to go to Karura Forest to actually do that. But if we could electrify public transport, I am telling you, you could actually do it. And even NCBA, your employees will be walking from here to headquarters as opposed to taking an Uber.
So how are you integrating with public transport? I also sit in the other space where I report on it, but maybe just to give us a highlight of what you've been able to do with Basico.
So basically, Basico is not a bus operator.
Yeah.
We actually, we like to call ourselves a technology company and a battery financer. Because of the high cost of an electric vehicle, what we are doing is we make it possible for the operators to actually acquire the bus through what we call a pay-as-you-drive or a kilometer-based financing. So NCBA will finance the owner like he finances any other diesel vehicle through asset finance, but the battery on that vehicle will remain on our balance sheet. And what then we are able to do is give them an 8-year warranty and a 600,000 kilometer warranty on that bus. And that bus will come to us every day, so we set up charging stations. Currently we have 3, one public in Buruburu, we've got one in Kikuyu and one in Embakasi, and I'm glad I'm sitting next to Kenya Power, who are my biggest partners, and we're actually looking to do at least 16 next year. And these are public, so that then the matatu operator operates exactly like he operates his diesel vehicle, only that it comes back to a Basico charging point where we actually do overnight safari checks and all the service, we clean the vehicle, and then he concentrates on their business of actually public transport. But anything else to do with the technology risk, anything to do with how the bus is charged, and anything to do with the technology that goes into that bus, we then take care of, and then they just continue. And so far we've deployed 19 buses. As we sit, and I think the guys in the room, since we're in the right place, I have 200 orders from matatu operators.
Oh, wow.
I'll say that again. I have 200 orders from matatu operators, and that is only in the last 20 days. We opened our reservation list on the 2nd of August, and so far 200 have booked. That's actually more than we intended to bring next year. But since I've seen a nice big figure behind there, what was it, 30 billion? Yeah. We actually perhaps can deliver those, and we start seeing excellent public transport, and that is actually sustainable and emission-free.
Congratulations for that. And you see what you are saying, Moses, and what you are saying, Luca, you will get to experience, because there's that bus that's right outside. If you've never ridden in an EV, today will be your moment. And not only that, you will get to see the charging stations that NCBA has set up for customers. Here, there's 2, right? NCBA Center and NCBA House. So you'll get to see that and why that's something I'm looking forward to doing. You know, does it sound the same? Is it comfortable? You know, all those things that we really bother with, even when we look at, you know, how that works. So, you know, good stuff to both of you, Luca and Moses. And of course, like we say, none of what you do would be possible without a very important partner. That's, you know, energy sector and power distribution. So, engineer, tell us what policies and incentives then exist for those who want to get into this space. We know that the Energy Petroleum Regulatory Authority actually put up a subsidized rate, right, for charging that. But speak to us about the policies and incentives that you have.
Thanks, Yvonne, and thanks to NCBA Group MD for this invitation. Apologies from our MD, who was out of town and couldn't make it. And again, thanks. I think last year we did hold an e-mobility thought leadership conference, and we're also happy to report that NCBA and the Group MD were very kind enough to be our main sponsors, and our partners like Basigol and all the other people in that environment. I think in terms of policies, and because Ministry of Environment is also here, we have a lot of legislation pieces that guide the country. If I talk about our own sector, energy sector, the Energy Policy 2018, which really is a guiding document and really gave birth to the Energy Act 2019, under which we operate as a company. It gives guidelines, and one of the things it gives as an aspiration is that all the energy that is generated in the country, sold, is supposed to make sure that the environment is not tampered with. And I think with that aspiration and with many other policies government put in, I think for the last about 15 years, we've had the government, Ministry of Energy, put in a feed-in tariff. The feed-in tariff was kind of a guarantee for people coming to invest in the energy generation on renewable energy to get specific committed tariffs by government. And that also catalyzed that kind of drive. I think in the last, and I was talking to Luca earlier, as a country right now with around 3,200 megawatts of installed generation, we have about 92% of that total being actually renewable and green, if we can so say. And we even have days, like when we have low demand on Sundays, where we are able to dispatch even up to only 2% of non-renewable. In the Energy Act, a whole part, I think part 8 of the Energy Act 2019, gives guidelines on energy conservation, which really is telling the energy sector actors to have certain limits to what they can do, the pollution levels, and so on and so forth. I want to just mention something. And in the energy policy, the one that guides the Energy Act, it actually recognizes that around 69 to 72% of all the cooking energy we have in the country is actually biomass. And it's also an area where we are interested as a company in trying to leverage on e-cooking technologies, I mean, in addition to e-mobility, which we are partnering very, very closely, to make sure that that whole quantum of energy that is used by Kenyans is translated to e-cooking, which is going to be aided, of course, by cheap e-cooking devices. And we have also a lot of partners who've come into the country, and Group MD will be happy to also talk about that, because we've discovered a lot of the areas we take the last mile program, for example, they are still using the electricity for lighting, but do not translate to using it for cooking, still use biomass. So those policy guidelines, I think, are the ones that govern the space we operate in.
Yeah. And
If only you allow me.
Yes.
I think on incentives, what else have we got? I know people don't like to talk about the Finance Act, but for us in e-mobility, it was a good thing because one, we got a reprieve of VAT on electric motorcycles, electric bicycles, and electric buses. So when we bring a bus as a CKD kit to assemble here, then that VAT is deferred, so you're not paying it up, and that's good for the cash flow. We also got a recognition of electric bicycles, and the excise was removed on that, and also on electric buses. So there's a lot happening on that direction, and we are pushing for more to actually lower the biggest challenge, which is the high cost of acquisition. And then over and above that is the Ministry of Transport recently gazetted e-mobility task force, and they've been given, I think, 6 months to be able to come up with a broader policy which will guide this sector moving forward. So there's quite a lot, and I think I recently, it's not gone 2 weeks without a high government official all the way to the president actually talking about e-mobility as a driving force for the new for decarbonizing transport and actually uptake of energy in the country. So there's a lot happening in the background, and we'll start seeing the fruits of that coming through.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
Maybe just you want to, so in terms of, in the last tariff approval we got from the EPRA, we did push to get an e-mobility tariff, special tariff, and it also came with what we call a time of use tariff. So we recognize a lot of charging happens in the night, for example. So it's at 16 shillings per kilowatt hour, but in the night from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., it comes at 8 shillings. So I think players like Basigo, Rome, Steamer Boda, and the rest, I think as we try to configure that and as we partner with NCBA and other partners like this, I think it's an area where government has given us that leverage so that we can really jack the market in terms of e-mobility.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to now start doing a final round of comments. Luke, I'd like to begin with you on what type of collaboration that you see that would be effective, that would enable you to do more, that would enable all of us to be able to do more in our respective spaces. I mean, I think what's coming out here is you can't do what you do without the energy sector, without financing, and without a number of them. But what sort of key areas of collaboration would you like to see going forward?
I'm not sure collaboration will fit our bill because we are off the grid. I think, without being arrogant, what I hope is that what MWC has done and is about to do, and we've been client with NCBA since ever, and it's fantastic the financial service we have been provided. We are making a huge investment to do 2 lodges, one near Mount Kenya, one near Amboseli, that will be like the one that we just did, zero emission, 100% electric vehicles with Rivians. I hope they will become the minimum benchmark where the high-end safari industry will have to catch up and basically have a lodge that is zero emission. I think it's really, if you think about it, if we were in Europe and you would buy an induction kitchen or electric vehicles, you would not solve the problem because that electricity is coming from oil anyway. So I think being in Kenya, this transition to electric vehicles and induction kitchen is revolutionary. We are doing it in the bush, and you can do it at home. Yeah. So perhaps, without being arrogant, being a set of an example that if we did it in the middle of the bush, it can be done everywhere. And hopefully in the safari industry, what we are now creating, and I didn't mention it, but with our company, Conservation Equity, this is a new payment for ecosystem service. We will not have profits. We finance it for financing MWCT. So it would be the very first tourism operation in Africa that will be completely giving the proceeds to a conservation organization.
And that is indeed what sustainability is about as well, you know, giving back and ensuring that the communities in which we work and live and operate are thriving just as much as we are.
But if you want to buy our carbon credits, the RED carbon project in Chulu has been extremely successful. 9 partners, 4 are Maasai Group ranches, KWS, KFS, and 3 conservation organization. And we brought significant buyers in Kenya, Netflix, Apple, Gucci, Tiffany, and I think we have impacted the lives of many, many Kenyans. Last year with a drought, so the idea of a RED project, you need to demonstrate that there is a threat to the survival of the forest. It's called validation. And then you have verification where you are actually audited, where you're able to address those threats. Yeah. And one is, let's involve the community who is destroying the forest and why. And if we can do that effectively, then we are succeeding. In last drought, we helped 26,000 Maasai kids receiving food at school. And we engage them to say nature pays off. So carbon can really help and impact thousands of lives.
Absolutely, and just leveraging on those partnerships and several of those actors coming together. Congratulations on the work that you continue to do. I think a final word as we go around. Let me start with you, Engineer, as we continue to go. More collaborations, what needs to happen? Feel free to make a personal commitment if you like. You can make it here, and that can offset you signing the board outside.
Thank you. I think on one front, I was thinking actually, as you are being told to make a commitment as you go out. I know I'm in the energy sales business, but you know, RIDE, we have a partner who is coming in. I mean, one of companies coming in about a fleet of 70 taxis, electric. We are setting up a charging station to them also, steamer border and so on. So I'm saying, trying to think about how we can ride those kinds of equipment as part of our commitment to offset the diesel and so on. But I think for me, as we sit in this environment, and because we also have government, and happy that the next 2 weeks is to look at that impact and check the incentives for especially pricing. I'm happy the government has now set a bit of the taxes on e-vehicles, e-mobility kind of equipment. But for us, on the energy sales business and energy generation, is to try and see how we can, with policymakers, look at how energy can become, electricity for that matter, cheaper and more affordable, so that then it catalyzes this discussion. Because a lot of the time people are looking at the cost differential. What am I gaining? As Lucas said, 2 cents. To run his units against $2 per kilometer. And I think that will be the biggest gain. As energy becomes cheaper, then we get the e-space going.
Absolutely. Moses?
I like the part of energy becoming cheaper.
Music to your ears, I'll bet.
I think what I would like to say is, as we are moving forward, we can talk about sustainability, but if you cannot make economic sense to the common person, then it will fall on deaf ears. And what we've been able to prove over the last 18 months in a sector that sometimes people shun away from, which is actually the public service sector or the matatu sector, is these guys actually are making more money, and now they're beginning to think, okay, I can make more money and use a sustainable means to make that money, and that's actually a big thing. So for us, what we are looking is to bring more partners, especially in the financial sector, so that we can actually accelerate that, and also just keep preaching this gospel that that moving towards sustainability doesn't mean you're increasing your cost. It actually says you're lowering your cost and giving yourself an opportunity to actually make money for longer.
Thinking long term, yeah. Before you chime in, Louisa, we're coming to questions in a moment, so. I know, especially members of the press who might have a few questions. So we're coming to that shortly after this. Louisa?
Sure thing. I think as bankers, we're often accused of being unashamed capitalists. But I think that this particular moment and the crescendo where we've reached, where doing good isn't about, hugging trees only, it's also economically viable. The fact that we've changed the conversation from the West was able to develop and build its economies, and now we're being asked to do a little differently. Now we're saying, no, we're coming to the table saying that we also want a benefit. And that benefit comes from the carbon credits that Luca mentioned, from the likes of Netflix, from the like of Nike and Amazon, that there's an opportunity for this country to be able to actually develop in a green way and get paid and make money while at it. So I think as a bank, we're excited that we can stand at this nexus of bringing together the innovators like Basigo, bringing together the energy providers, bringing together the carbon credit orchestrators, and create economic prosperity, not just for our customers, but then also for our business. So I think it's a very exciting time. I don't think this conversation could have happened any sooner before the commercial viability was unlocked, as my friends have referenced. So we're very excited.
Super. Judy?
Yeah, so from the Global Compact side, in terms of closing reflections, and as we dash to the 2030 deadline, I think it's important for private sector, regardless of your company size or the sector you represent or however complex your business is, for you to realize that you can actually make a contribution. And I think for a long time, and especially in this market, we tend to think that sustainability, ESG, and contribution to the SDGs is an agenda for the big boys, but this is not the case. Everybody can make a contribution, and the beauty of the SDGs is that the challenges are actually disguised business opportunities, and I think Basigo here demonstrates that very well. I think for us, looking at how we can accelerate action is also to see how can government continue to give those policy signals to enable private sector to invest in sectors that would be critical for us to bridge that gap. So for us, I think the support is there for any company that is trying to make sense of the sustainability agenda, trying to figure out where do I start. The goals are many, the challenges are complex, but the support is there. The support is available to help you understand what your entry point or your starting point is, how to go about integration, how to ensure that the entire business is aligned, because we're no longer talking about CSR, meaning after you've done everything else in the business, then you can throw a few coins there. We are talking about how do you align the entire business from your governance to your culture, to the way you report, and to the way you also interface with different stakeholders. So I think it's critical for us to really look at this agenda as a business imperative and one that has real returns on investment, but we also want to see government helping to provide the right signaling to private sector and other players to help us really scale up action.
Yeah, indeed. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Stay here with me. Any questions that we have from members of the press, this would be a great moment to do so. We are willing and open to take questions. And I say the question could also be to the speakers we had a little earlier. Any questions? Going once? This must be really good. We must be really, either we've understood nothing, or we've understood everything and we're good. Listen, this is not the last time you'll be interacting with NCBA as they make these very bold commitments today. There will be many opportunities and we will be there. I mean, I know you announced your half-year results yesterday. There will be the full year results in another 6 months. So there'll be moments there we'll be taking a look at this bold financing commitments that have been made, not just this year, next year as the years continue. And I think like John Gashora said, even when it is a loss-making season, you are going to budget that in. That is one big promise, and we look forward to seeing how that is actually put into practice. So thank you. There being no further business with this panel, I want us all to please give them a round of applause for the work that they're doing in their respective spaces. Thank you all so much. You may take your seats. Thank you very much. Our best regards to where you're coming from. And so, you know, we've heard and seen about those commitments that are there. I promise at the next one, it is an NCBA notebook, but at the next one I will have no paper, I promise. Because some of those commitments include opting whether you want to print it or do you want to store it digitally and send that as well. You will remember the invites to this event were all done digitally. So, you know, it's all about walking the talk and like Judy said, incorporating sustainability throughout each and every aspect of your business. It's no longer just the side department. It's no longer just the thing that you do at the end of the year. It's coming to Christmas. What have we done? Oh, perhaps we could, you know, parachute in and out of a particular community and trying to do that. But it's about financing that. It's about you know, and starting, you don't have to do all of the goals. I mean, I think, you know, Judy always says, pick one and get started. And then you will find that it gets easier and easier. And nobody actually does all of them. Well, if you do, fantastic. But it's about making very commitments and holding yourself to account for that. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to that moment in time. know, what's one of those without a real huge launch moment? So ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to focus your attention on our screens now as we formally unveil NCBA Changing the Story.
Thank you for being an integral part of the NCBA family. Together, we have achieved incredible milestones in building a bigger and more impactful business. I am immensely proud of what we have accomplished. Here at NCBA, we have identified sustainability as a key priority for our organization. It is more than a goal. It is recognizing that our license to operate is granted by the communities we serve. As a brand whose purpose is to inspire greatness, we have an opportunity to catalyze action towards a greener and more sustainable future. We believe that a sustainable future is a better future for everyone, that collectively we can chart a path forward to a more resilient society that can navigate the challenges of the future. That is why we're unveiling our sustainability commitments, our commitments to drive change and invest in our collective future. Through financing green projects and e-mobility solutions, we are doing our part to reduce reliance on fossil fuels. Our internal operations are also being retrofitted to reduce waste, enhance energy efficiency, and reduce our carbon footprint. We continue our tree growing efforts with an aim to grow 10 million trees by 2030 and contribute to the regional agenda for nature-based solutions to this pressing climate crisis. But we can't do it alone. We believe that everyone has a role to play. That is why we are committed to working with you, our stakeholders, our customers, and indeed our communities. We've made significant progress, but there's still work to be done. So join me in changing the story by committing to do these 5 things. 1, becoming more energy efficient. 2, ditching single-use plastics. 3, becoming an avid tree grower. 4, thinking before you print. And 5, becoming a sustainability champion and evangelizing to your community. Together, let's build a culture of responsibility and impact that leaves a legacy for generations to come. Join me and change the story. A sustainable future starts by doing good today.
in terms of making that commitment, Ms. Judy Ngino, the Executive Director, also signing that there, which marks the start of a journey of accountability. And he now then presents that to Ms. Judy Ngino from the UN Global Compact Network Kenya. Let's have a photo to remember that moment here. Congratulations and the very best of luck to you as you carry on with that. All right, thank you very much. Let's have one last round of applause for that. Sustainability, its reporting, its agenda setting, like we said, is a very big moment for an organization, but is also one that is extremely important in terms of reporting and in terms of setting the stage. And like we said, it's not just for the big boys. And some of us here have smaller organizations that we may be running or working with. And this is also a call to you to do the same in the various spaces that we work. Now, I'd like to make an important announcement now before I invite Nelly on. Is we told you about the 2 EV charging stations that NCBA has set up. They are strategically located, like the one that is here, literally for consumers, where you can go out and charge your electric vehicle. We're going to be showing you how that works. That'll be happening outside. We'll have a few of you leave the room and go and see that demonstration and simulation in place. The rest of you can sit here and watch it, but you will have the opportunity to see how that works, because it's not just about a commitment for the future, it's also about what NCBA is doing right now, right here, today. So you'll get a chance to see that. For those of you who will go, of course we've thought about it. So you will be riding in an electric vehicle, a bus. It's a short ride. We would have wanted you to walk, but we want you to experience the EV space, right? Seeing is believing, and experiencing makes that even better. So that will be happening in just a short while from now. But please, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like us to put our hands together, and we can have that on your screen. A lady I've known and worked with for quite some time and who's very passionate in this space. Ladies and gentlemen, we have Ms. Nelly Wainaina, who's the Group Director for Marketing, Communication, and Citizenship at NCBA Group. Please give her a round of applause.
Which is fine. Excellent. So listen, making commitments is easy, but changing habit is probably even more difficult. And so while Yvonne is asking us to go downstairs or take the bus to the EV station, today we struggled to get people on the EV bus. Moses, it was difficult to get guys on the bus because suddenly there was a loss of control. Where do I leave my car keys, or how do I get back to the office? A changing habit will not be easy as we get into this agenda, but that is why we have marketers. So one of the jobs for us, obviously, will be to change habit when it comes to how we do things every day. One other habit, I think Chairman did talk to use of paper. Hopefully next time we can have him with an iPad for his speech. Same to Yvonne. But by the way, you'd really need great eyesight to have to read your speech from your phone. So we are going to do that today. But before I go to my speech and to thank everyone that has brought us today, we will be committing to some of the sustainability agendas in terms of our gifting. We have gifting available for our key guest, Mr. Neto. Thank you very much. And I'll ask Mr. Chairman to certainly give one of our gifts, which is sustainable. I promise everything in that bag is sustainable. Please, Mr. James Ndegwa, if you could come to the front, and Mr. Neto, so we can give you and already start making our commitments in terms of sustainability. Great. I'll now ask our Group Managing Director, Mr. Gashora, to gift our panelists who did a wonderful job today, sharing insights on sustainability, sharing our commitments as partners and opportunities. I know, Eric, you're asking if we should be funding the 200 buses that Moses wants.
Yes, we should. Lennox. Yes, we should. Yes, we can. So thank you very much for some of the insights shared by the panel. I'll ask the panel to please come to the front so you can start receiving our sustainability gifts. We can start with Judy from the UN. We'll have Moses from Basigo. Engineer. And finally, Mr. Luca, our great customer. So now let me attempt to read my speech without paper. Our key guest speaker, Mr. Neto Agostino, Your Excellency, thank you for representing the Cabinet Secretary today. We appreciate that the government is here. Our Group Chairman, Mr. James Ndegwa, our Group Managing Director, Mr. Gashora, our board members present today, our NCBA Group Directors, Executive Committee who are here to support this wonderful cause, our esteemed panelists, thank you for being here, our colleagues and leaders from NCBA, including the citizenship team, the champions, and all the leaders who've been highly involved in this event. Invited guests, members of the Fourth Estate, ladies and gentlemen, it's not yet afternoon, so we are doing good on time. Every day, our purpose at NCBA is really to inspire greatness, and our sustainability commitments today is a demonstration of our journey towards greatness. So greatness takes time, but so does sustainability. The World Economic Forum highlights that sustainability has become a business imperative for all companies. This can only be achieved, however, through leadership and collaboration with different partners, as we've seen today. Let me take this opportunity to thank everybody involved in bringing together our commitments today and to drive change. From the public sector, Honorable Neto, asante sana for representing the CS, and we'll continue working with you. We'll work together with the ACS team and to bring change to this country and of course the other regions that will be involved in changing Africa. To the private sector, I know there's a number of us here today. To the community activities partners, I can see some from the Gulf fraternity, others from some of the initiatives we've had with the First Ladies. Thank you for being here. I believe the Mama Doing Good team from the First Lady's office is also represented. Thank you for being here and thank you for the wonderful opportunities that we are looking to adopt going forward. A special mention to the sustainability champions who've worked hard, as Louisa mentioned earlier, to bringing this to life. This looked very good on PowerPoint at some point. It did not look like a reality when we started planning, and I understand when the media does not ask questions, because the first time we attended as a sustainability event and meeting, we did not ask Louisa questions. We went to ask outside the room. And so this has been a great journey, of course, of learning internally for our business, and of course, trying to pivot all the work that we've done so far. Louisa, I cannot fail to mention your leadership in generating the ESG framework for NCBA Group, because we see this as a big opportunity to drive change. To our board members, to our leadership, thank you for the guidance, the steer core that was largely involved in guiding the team to get to where today, asanteni sana. The team that brought today's sustainable event to life, including Yvonne, we have two Yvonnes actually. We have Yvonne Okwara, and we have, where is Yvonne Maingi? Dr. Yvonne Maingi, come. We need to see you.
many remember Yvonne Maingi on Kiboko Club? It shows how young or old some of us are. Dr. Yvonne has been really instrumental as a partner, as a teacher for many of us, including for a group managing director where we could not answer questions on sustainability, and more so being a great colleague. We consider you a colleague, Yvonne. Thank you so much for being here and wish you the best. I think, is tomorrow your birthday? Yes. So this is a great birthday gift for Yvonne as she brings together this event. Let's change the story and go forth to build a sustainable future, which our children, and I think many speakers today spoke of, we are building the next generation and they will benefit from all the actions we take. Before you leave, please ensure you sign the commitment form. It's on the outside. Just tell us where you're coming from, who you represent, and we'll certainly keep that. And in 6 months, when we report our next great results, we'll also share the commitments and how we are doing that so far. So asanteni sana, thank you everyone for being here today. We appreciate your time. Members of the media, we appreciate you. Driving the sustainability narrative to the public and what we are doing as NCBA is absolutely important. So I see a number of you who are also with us yesterday. We appreciate that this message will also get to the public and to the people that we work with to make sure that we continue driving our commitments, both commercially and also for the communities we serve. Thank you very much. Yvonne.
Thank you, Nelly, for that. So here's what's going to happen next is we're going to be able to showcase to you those EV charging stations, one of them that is out here. For the rest of you, you will stay in the room. We would like to call upon the ExCom members who are here, members of the board, our chief guest, Bon Agostino Neto, the chairperson of the board, the group MD, Ms. Judy Ngino, and the sustainability champions that have been identified for this. You will congregate right outside where the bus, which is an electric vehicle, will transport you. It's just, I mean, you'll be there like in no time, just down at the gate, which is where the EV charging station is, for a demonstration of how it works. For the rest of us, we'll remain here in the room, but you will get to see it, don't worry. We'll be beaming that here on the screen, so you'll get to see that in just a short while. Now, all of us, as you leave, even for those of you who are going on the bus, please get this gift as you go. So this is compost. It's made of 100% organic waste. And this will be good as you start to plant those 7 trees that John has urged us all to do. The instructions are there. Don't worry if you're not a farmer, you're not a gardener, you don't know how this works. I know, and even for your potted plants, for those of us who are plant parents, this will be good for us in the house. The instructions there as to how you can use this. There is something out there for everyone, so please do make sure you go away with this because we want you to begin your sustainability journey. And with this gift, surely you can make that commitment. So as you can see, that's the charging station. For those of you who will remain behind, you will get to see, witness, and hear just how that works. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention. For those of you who are going down, please do enjoy your bus ride. Please, Buonaneto, I know you're busy, but you have to see this because we want you to go and tell your colleagues that this is here, it's happening, it's working, especially as we go towards the Africa Climate Summit that is coming up in just a few days' time. So thank you, everybody. Please get your gifts. For those of us, let's remain behind. There's definitely still more to see, all right? And the panelists also, please be sure to join. I mean, I know, Moses, this is like your everyday, but you know, and I'm sure, Luca, this will be nothing new for you, but please join us as well for our panelists. So please make sure the panelists join us as well outside for the bus ride, and then we can actually begin to see just how the EV charging stations actually work. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you.
right, ladies and gentlemen. Check 1 2. Mic check 1 2. Check 1 2. Iko sawa? Haya, wazi.
we actually wanted you to test the car. It's Aaron. Okay, done. Thanks, Judy. All right. So we want. And then, yeah. How does that work? Very good. Perfect. Excellent. Thank you. Chair, if you can get into the car and test it for us, see if it's charged. So is it on now, since it does not make noise? Is it on? It is on. Wow, okay. Oh. Okay, Chair, we are now good. Yeah. See. Thank you. Who do we have for Q&A? GMD and Chairman, Honorable. Media, do you have any questions? Natalie. Dagi. Do you have any questions from media? Do you have any questions, or do you want Vox Pops or Tukosawa? We are good. Okay. Hakuna mtu hapa. Okay, we are done. We're actually done. There's no question from media. So we are done. Thank you so much, sir. We can excuse you. Oh, are you sure?
We ran cross country those many kilometers, so
Yes.
So thank you so much for hosting us. I'll send you regards to the minister, and I'll definitely make sure that you do this. I'll make sure that you go ahead and then we can discuss our replacement plan. But at the summit themselves, we also you coming for the summit. Make sure we can keep it.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are done. For those who want transport back to the venue, Basigo is there. ExCom members, please to the front, including Yvonne. We'd just like to take one picture. Just here. Here. Just spread them.